Discover the incredible journey. What happens when California unexpectedly seeks independence? Amelia stood before the mirror that morning, her heart thundering in her chest. She brushed her daughter's unruly hair, the smell of eggs and toast wafting from the kitchen. The news blared in the background, a declaration that rattled her cozy town of Maplewood. California was seeking independence. Panic buzzed in the air like bees in spring. She reminded herself to take a deep breath. We can get through this, just like her father had taught her. Every day, Amelia worked tirelessly, balancing 3 jobs without losing sight of the most important thing: her 2 children. Dealing with unruly tables and dirt-laden homes felt lighter when she held her kids close. Yet, with the news of potential upheaval looming over them, fear crept in. Would she still be able to provide for them if everything changed? The thought squeezed her chest tight. As conversations about independence surged, the community hall transformed into a battleground. Long-standing friendships crumbled as neighbors exchanged heated words. Her brother Jake, a mechanic and father of 3, saw this shift as golden. "This is our chance," he'd say, eyes gleaming with ambition. But their mother? She pleaded with him, "We're stable, Jake. Don't toss it away for dreams." Amelia felt torn, a thin thread stretched between the audacity of change and the elasticity of tradition. In the thick of swirling opinions at the community center, Amelia moved among her neighbors, listening and observing. "What will this do to my business?" whispered Mrs. Thompson with fear written all over her face. Another voice chimed in, "Will our kids have a future?" Uncertainty stung the place that felt like home now felt foreign. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Amelia couldn't stand by and watch as the fabric of their town, their family, frayed. She stepped up to the podium with all eyes on her, a quiet storm brewing inside. The room fell silent, a cage of anticipation. "We're all scared that's okay," she began, her voice steady yet trembling. "But we must remember what brought us here: family, resilience." Tears shimmered in her eyes as she spoke her father's name, the man who taught her to fight through storms. This was their moment. But just as hope flickered, voices erupted. "Look at what they want to take from us," one neighbor shouted, making the temperature rise. Old friends turned against one another, echoing sentiments of fear and loss. The room shook under the weight of unresolved tensions. Amelia felt the rift deepen, her heart clenching at the sight of her brother's despair. How would she pull them back together? The battle for independence projected a future, but at what cost to their love? As discussions boiled over and true feelings erupted, she stood at a crossroads, her mind racing. Could her voice echo the unity they once cherished, or would it divide them further? The tension hung thick in the air as Amelia took a deep breath, steeling herself to confront the beliefs that could either heal her family or tear them apart forever. What would it take to find common ground amidst the chaos? Would her father's lessons hold true as they faced this daunting new chapter? Amelia looked out at the crowd, their expressions a blend of anger, confusion, and fear. The heat of the moment pressed around her like a weighty blanket. She had to remind herself of her purpose here, of the family bonds that meant more than any change the world might throw at them. "Please," she raised her voice just enough to capture their attention. "I understand the fears, the worries. But let us think about what we're risking." She glanced around, catching the eyes of neighbors who had spent years at her side. "This community, these friendships, they are our strength. Do we really want to let fear tear us apart?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. For a moment, she felt a flicker of hope. But then, Jake stood up, his frustration palpable. "You talk about friendship, but what about our futures? His voice pierced through the uncertainty. This is our chance to be free, to shape our destiny. Noting the fire in her brother's eyes, Amelia felt a pang. She knew his heart was in the right place, but freedom came with consequences. The chaos of his vision clashed with the warmth of unity she longed for. What destiny? She countered. Is it one where we lose each other in the process? The tension thickened again. People shifted, glancing back and forth like children caught between warring parents. A knot tightened in Amelia's stomach. Think of our kids. What will they see? Their parents arguing? Friends turned against each other? It's not an argument, called out Mr. Jenkins, clearly agitated. It's about survival. If California goes independent, we'll have a chance to thrive. And what about the resources we rely on? What about the friendships that make us strong? Amelia pressed, her heart racing as she tried to convey her deepest fear, the loss of everything they had built together. As a few neighbors exchanged glances, she could see doubt creeping in. Somewhere amid the shouting and conflicting emotions, a realization began to dawn, that divisions could, and most likely would, lead to heartbreak. Then a child's voice piped up, small yet clear enough to hush the crowd. It was Lily, one of Amelia's daughter's friends. But what if we just play together? We can still be friends, right? Dumbstruck, Amelia felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. It was an innocent observation, yet it cut through the noise of adulthood. The simplicity of it, the image of children at play, the beauty of collaboration hit her hard. While they stood fighting over their fates, their children were ready to reach across the divide. Lily's right, she said, her voice filled with resolve. What if we work together? Yes, we have fears, yes, we have differences. But we are not just our politics. We are families, we are neighbors. No matter what happens, we need to find a way to support each other. Around the room, the tension began to shift. Nods of recognition emerged. The path forward wasn't clear, but if they could begin to unite around their shared humanity, perhaps they could weather the storm together. As Amelia stepped down from the podium, the pulse of hope ignited her spirit. But just as she started to feel a sense of togetherness, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, the message freezing her breath. A picture of a protest forming in the heart of downtown, supporters waving flags that accused their town of betrayal. Amelia's heart sank. Oh no, she whispered under her breath. Would they really let this divide them to the breaking point? As she looked back at her brother, uncertainty etched on his face, one thought took shape: were they truly ready to stand together, or was this only the beginning of a fight that could tear apart everything they loved? Amelia's heart raced as her eyes darted back to the screen of her phone. The image of protesters outside the local town hall, flags unfurling like dark clouds above them, sent a chill down her spine. She felt the weight of every pair of eyes in the room staring at her, their hopes resting on her shoulders. Why do they think we would betray them? She murmured, half to herself. The low hum of the crowd echoed her sentiment. Conversations erupted around her, complex and tangled, weaving stories of confusion and suspicion. Amelia, what do we do? Jake's whisper jolted her back. Challenge and desperation clashed in his voice. This isn't just some argument anymore. It's serious. Watching her brother, Amelia felt that familiar tug of both love and worry blend together. She knew him well enough to read the shadows in his eyes, his need for answers equaled her own. We face it together, she replied, longing to convince him. It's the only way. As murmurings of the crowd grew in intensity, Amelia paced the floor. Listen. She called, her voice growing steadier with each heartbeat. If we're going to survive, we need to come together instead of letting this divide us. But the fear she had seen before didn't clear, it deepened. Slowly, voices of dissent arose. You think we can just ignore this? One woman cried, her discontent echoing. This is bigger than us. What's our message? Demanded Mr. Jenkins again. If we don't take a stand against independence, we're giving up everything. Amelia's heart pounded louder. Her thoughts raced. She understood the stakes yet couldn't shake the hope she felt after Lily's innocent suggestion. If we fight each other, we're giving in to fear. She argued, clinging to any fragments of unity she could muster. Suddenly, a familiar voice rose from the rear of the gathering. And if we choose to stand together, what then? It was Tessa, a long-time neighbor known for her quiet strength. What will happen when future generations ask us why we chose to divide? The room quieted down, hearing the raw honesty in Tessa's words. Amelia felt a spark ignite within her, a shared understanding threading through the crowd like sunlight breaking through the clouds. Let us talk. Amelia called out, seizing the moment. Let us have an open forum, share our feelings, our fears. We can't let a protest divide us. Tentative nods formed in the crowd, the tension easing just enough for a glimmer of hope. But then, an urgent question emerged. What about the protest? Someone shouted, uncertainty creeping back like a shadow. Amelia turned toward Jake. He looked more anxious than ever. You can't just ignore it, he said, staring into her eyes. What if they take it further? What if they start aiming their anger at us? Motivated by the rising tide of emotion, Amelia leaned in closer to Jake, a hushed intensity in her voice. We've got to show them that we're united. If we're not careful, we'll lose sight of the love and relationships we've built, and that is the true betrayal. As she glanced around the crowd again, seeing the mix of fear and determination flicker in their faces, something clicked inside her. There was a reason she had fought for unity tonight. But deep down, even as a thread of hope pulled her forward, she felt the dark uncertainty lurking. Did they have the strength to unite against an unseen enemy? Would they rise together or fall apart? The moment hung there, heavy with unanswered questions. And as a few murmurs picked up in strength, Amelia remained on the precipice, poised for whatever was next to come. What revelations awaited them on the other side of this storm? Amelia took a deep breath, gripping the podium as if it were a lifeline. The murmurs swirled around her, blending into a cacophony of anxiety and doubt. She glanced at Jake, his brow furrowed, and felt an echo of his fear sliding down her spine. They were family, bound together by history and love, and yet standing here felt like staring into a chasm. Okay, she said, her voice ringing with a determined clarity. Let us start with each of us being honest. What do we fear most about a potential break from California? What does it mean for us personally? A silence fell, thick and heavy. Then, Mrs. Thompson, the elderly woman with kind eyes, raised her hand, her voice quivering. I fear losing my home, my community. This is the place my family built, and I don't want it torn apart. Her voice wavered, but the truth within it bolstered a new sense of connection. Others began to share, each voice weaving a more colorful tapestry of concerns. Their thoughts flowed like a river, revealing vulnerabilities. Some feared economic collapse. Others worried about the return of old prejudices. Amelia listened intently, the weight of hope and despair fluttering in her chest like a trapped bird. Jake finally spoke, his voice steady, though unease dripped from his words. But what if we choose to unite and it doesn't work? What if we're only delaying the inevitable pain? His eyes flickered around the room, seeking understanding. I don't have all the answers, Amelia admitted, her pulse quickening. But neither do we have to face this alone. We've built friendships, relationships, our shared history matters. Isn't that worth fighting for? The crowd began to buzz again, a mix of agreement and skepticism ebbing and flowing. No one knew where this would lead, but Amelia could see them stirring, hearts inching closer together. Let me share what I think, chimed in Tessa, her voice calm but firm. When we look at our fears, what are they rooted in? We fear what we don't understand. If we face this together, we might just learn what it means to truly support one another. Her words felt like a bomb, soothing some of the tension. Amelia nodded, feeling a warmth spread within her. It was true connection often sprang from discourse. She felt the energy shift, people leaning in, wanting to be a part of the conversation. That fracture she had sensed was beginning to mend with the first threads of dialogue. "I'll tell you what I love about this community," Amelia said, a smile creeping upon her face. "We've always embraced one another, regardless of our differences. The strength of our unity is legendary." A light laughter broke through the strain as someone yelled, "Legendary? I'm not sure about that." The tension cracked, and a ripple of laughter followed suit, creating a shared moment of relief. With that spark ignited, Amelia pressed forward. "Let's get creative. How about forming small groups? Discuss not only our fears but also our hopes for the future, regardless of what happens with the protest. Let's put our voices together rather than letting the negativity divide us." As she looked around, expectant faces sparked with interest, and they began to organize themselves into clusters, cautious but eager. Amelia felt a surge of energy, exhilarated by the potential of collective hope. The uncertainty didn't vanish, but it was buried beneath a growing foundation of trust. But just when the atmosphere felt charged with possibility, a loud crash echoed from a nearby window, a sign of unrest outside. A collective gasp rippled through the room as they turned to look. "What's happening?" Jake's voice trembled, mirroring the panic that clouded the atmosphere. Amelia's heart sank. The moment they thought they could embrace unity was dashed by intruding chaos. How could they maintain their fragile alliance with the world outside shifting beneath their feet? The stakes were growing. Would their newfound connection withstand the turmoil outside? As Amelia faced the crowd, ready to rally them again, she couldn't shake the gnawing sense of urgency. The real test of their unity was looming closer than ever. Could they rise above the noise, or would they too become a part of this impending storm? Amelia's heart raced as the echo of the crash faded, leaving a heavy silence thick with fear. She could feel the tension in the room, a tightness that squeezed at her chest. The flickering lights overhead seemed to pulse in rhythm with her anxiety. What if this was the beginning of a fracture she couldn't mend? "Stay calm," she shouted, trying to cut through the dread that had settled over them like a thick fog. "We mustn't let fear take hold. We need to focus on each other. Let's listen and understand what's happening together." Jake stepped closer to her, tension mingling with unmistakable pride in his eyes. "Right. We have to be strong, not just for ourselves but for each other." His words weren't just a reassurance to the crowd but a lifeline to Amelia. They weren't in this alone. The murmurs confirmed what Amelia hoped. Conversation sparked again, growing louder as fear was channeled into concern. But the ambient energy was still tinged with worry, as though the walls themselves could sense the unrest beyond. "Let's remind ourselves of the strength we have," Amelia implored, her voice gaining momentum. "We've handled storms before, literal and metaphorical. Remember the floods last year? Look around, here we are, still standing, still united." Excitement began to ripple through the crowd, their feet shifting, bodies leaning into the shared experience. They nodded, remembering how they had supported each other then, how they brought blankets and food to those in need, neighbors helping neighbors. A hand shot up from the back. "And the fires. We fought against the flames together. We didn't back down." "Yes," Amelia cheered, her voice lifting. "We can face this uncertainty too. Let us show the world that our community doesn't crumble under pressure, it rises." Encouraged by her words, groups began to reform, exchanging ideas and sharing memories woven with resilience. But despite the charged atmosphere, Amelia found her gaze drifting to the window, half expecting it to shatter again. Outside, shadows shifted. Unrest brewed. Suddenly, a loudspeaker blared from the street, shattering the electric energy in the room. "We will not back down." Fear struck, and the conversation stuttered to a halt. People looked one another in the eye, and she could sense the collective heartbeat of the room. What were they up against? What would they choose to stand for? Let us go to the window, she urged, making her way toward the sound. We need to see what's happening. Jake followed closely, as did a handful of others. The crowd began to press toward the glass, a mass of anxious anticipation. With each step, Amelia felt a thrill ride up her spine, a blend of dread and determination. The desire to protect their community was as raw as the fear of losing it. Peering outside, what she saw made her heart race. Protesters, fierce and emboldened, marching through the streets carrying signs. "Fight for our rights." One read, while another boldly proclaimed, "Unite or divide." The sight ignited something inside her, a fierce urge to act. "Should we join them?" someone asked from behind her. The rumble of voices grew, confusion mingling with eagerness. "No," Amelia replied, steeling herself. "We need to focus on why they're out there. It's not just about protesting anymore. It's about finding common ground. What we build here, together, matters." But even she felt the weight of uncertainty. What would happen if the protests turned violent? Could their fragile alliance hold against the tide? The room buzzed with speculation, and she could see Jake, concern creasing his brow. "Let us make a plan," he suggested, pushing his fear to the side. Now fueling his resolve, she turned to face the crowd again, her voice steady with purpose. "This moment can be ours to shape." Outside, the noise echoed, relentless. Within, their energy surged with renewed hope. Amelia could feel the tides turning, yet knew this wasn't simply about facing fears. It was about forging courage in the face of an uncertain tomorrow. But what if the turmoil outside threatened to uproot everything they held dear? As Amelia prepared to rally the emotional strength of her gathered community, she couldn't ignore that the real challenge was just beginning. Could their unity withstand the storm threatening to break upon them? Amelia felt a stirring in the air, a mix of emotions swelling like the tide. The echoes of the loudspeaker faded, and the gravity of their situation hung like a thick curtain. She searched the faces in the crowd. Their determination now vibrated with a blend of fear and hope. But one question loomed: what was their role in this turning tide outside? "All right," she began, her voice steady, cutting through the buzzing conversations. "Let us gather our thoughts and ideas. We need to shape what we stand for." Jake stepped beside her, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity she couldn't ignore. "We need to know what we want to say," he added. "We can't let them speak for us without knowing what we believe in." The crowd shifted, some murmurs floating around like leaves in the wind, uncertain yet eager. "True," someone shouted from the back. "We can't just be bystanders." Amelia felt the pull of resolve forming an invisible thread among them. They were in this together, and she sensed more than ever that their collective spirit needed quenching. With each passing moment, the noise outside grew more frenetic, fueling the urgency within the room. "Let us divide into groups," she suggested. "Each of us can think through our own experiences. Why are we here? What do we have to say to each other and to those out there?" Nods of agreement rippled through the crowd. As folks began breaking off into smaller clusters, Amelia found herself instinctively gravitating towards Jake. "Do you think they'll understand?" she pondered, her voice soft yet heavy with doubt. "Will they hear us?" Jake squeezed her shoulder, grounding her. "We've seen times like this before. If there's one thing our community knows, it's how to communicate our needs. It's just a matter of finding our common thread." And so, they formed circles of connection. One group gathered around a table, discussing the hurt caused by broken promises from leadership. Another sat cross-legged on the floor sharing personal stories of struggle and tenacity. Amelia moved from cluster to cluster, feeling the raw energy swell and morph, each revelation a spark adding fuel to their collective fire. Suddenly, a young man raised his voice from a nearby group. "They'll hear us when we stand together. We've built a resilient town before, let us show them our strength." That fired-up sentiment rippled through the gathering, igniting a flurry of discussions. The mood shifted, tension slowly loosening its grip. Connections formed over shared fears, but also over dreams. Amelia listened intently as visions for a brighter future flowed, crafting a tapestry of hope that intertwined everyone's voices. Then someone asked the question Amelia feared the most, but what if we're not enough? What if they don't listen? The crowd hushed, each person lost in their own pang of insecurity. In that moment, doubt threatened to unravel all they had built that night. But Jake quickly stepped in, mirroring Amelia's earlier energy. Every voice counts. We may be small, but together, we're a force to reckon with. The palpable shift was immediate. Her heart swelled as Amelia watched people lean in closer, determination washing over their expressions. They were all in this struggle, unified yet varied in perspective. Let us create a statement, she said, sensing the collective air ripe with possibility. A message that speaks from our heart, a call to acknowledge our pain but also our power. Outside, the protests surged on, echoing the restlessness within. Amelia felt almost drunk on possibility, the adrenaline pulsing through her. This was a moment they could seize, a chance to shape their narrative amidst uncertainty. As the room returned to action with pens scratching and voices rising in passion, Amelia paused momentarily. It felt like the world outside might swallow them whole, yet here, inside those walls, they were reclaiming their spirit. But as their words took form, a chill swept through her. Would their plans hold when faced with the storm brewing on the other side of the glass? What awaited them when they finally stepped out of their fortified space into the chaos? The answer loomed just beyond the horizon, and as she held her breath, the question hung in the air: would they find their unity, or would it get lost among the clashing voices outside? Amelia took a deep breath, the weight of anticipation pressing down on her chest. She watched as the groups leaned into their discussions, fervor igniting in their eyes. Each scribble on paper felt like a small declaration. Yet, the distant shouts outside reminded her exactly why they were here, and why their voices needed to be heard. Okay, everyone. Jake called out, breaking the spell of focus. Let us bring it back together for a moment. Who's ready to share what they've come up with? Amelia's heart raced as one by one, members of the groups shared their thoughts. Stories poured out, hurt, fear, hope, and determination flowed from one soul to another. A woman from the back spoke about losing her home due to rising rents. A father spoke of his struggles to provide for his children in a volatile job market. Each narrative stitched a sense of urgency into the fabric of their identity. Amelia felt her own story churning inside her, but she hesitated. Would her voice matter? Was she strong enough to get her message across? She glanced at Jake, who gave a reassuring nod. She could feel the energy in the room, a powerful electricity igniting courage in her own heart. We need to acknowledge what we've all been through, she finally said, surprising herself with the strength in her voice. But we also need to fight for what happens next. For our children, for ourselves. That's it. A voice exclaimed from the back, and the room erupted in murmurs of agreement. The atmosphere shifted once more, no longer just about recounting struggles, but about seizing the future. As the shared mission solidified, Jake stepped forward. Let us focus on a call to action. What do we want from those beyond these walls? What's our vision, our demand? Sentences flew back and forth, a chorus of ideas battling with one another. Amelia felt herself swept up in the tide, the collective voice getting louder. They questioned the leaders who had turned their backs, challenged those who had silenced their stories. A plan began to form, sharpened by passion and vision. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed outside. The crowd froze, their pens hovering over paper, hearts pounding. The noise, a reminder of reality, sliced through their hopeful imaginations. Amelia's heart sank. Was that the moment her community had been waiting for, or a sign of impending chaos? Jake stepped closer to her. Stay focused, he whispered, though they both felt the weight of uncertainty hovering in the air. We'll channel whatever is happening out there. Let us make sure we're ready. Amelia's mind raced. The air was thick with adrenaline and fear. Would they be able to present a united front when the time came? What if all their plans fell apart in the face of an unpredictable tide? In that very moment, sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the table where their notes lay scattered. It felt like a sign, as if the universe was pushing them to act. This was their chance. With renewed focus, Amelia shouted, "Let us finalize our statement. What do we want the world to hear from us when we step outside?" The question hung in the air, a challenge and a promise, begging for clarity. The discussion surged again, but this time the urgency was palpable, crackling like static electricity. Amelia felt herself swept into the whirlwind of ideas, a fervor igniting within her. They were no longer simply a gathering of individuals, they had become something far greater, but amid all the fervor, a voice in the depths of her heart whispered doubts. What if they didn't have enough to stand strong against what lay beyond? As thoughts raced, an unsettling thought crept in. The decision to step outside would change everything. The question was not just what they wanted to shout into the world but whether they were truly prepared for the storm that awaited them. With a shiver of anticipation, as their thoughts hung like a quivering note in the air, Amelia realized they were on the edge of something immense. Would they have the courage to step into the chaos and embrace their destiny, whatever it might hold? The truth awaited them, just beyond the door. The sound of chaos outside grew louder, merging with the distant rumble of voices, a mixture of hope and fear echoing through the small room. Amelia took a step back from the table, her heart racing as she felt the collective pulse of the group. Everyone's eyes were wide, faces etched with determination, but also with apprehension. She locked eyes with Jake once more, feeling the weight of their unspoken connection. "Okay, let us get moving." Jake called out again, an electric resolve in his tone. "We've prepared long enough. This is our moment." He gestured toward the door, and Amelia could feel her pulse quickening. The room buzzed as everyone gathered their thoughts and went over their notes for one last time. Voices clashed and merged as if everyone was trying to be heard all at once. The intensity was infectious, and she found herself writing down the key points they had agreed upon. Their statement was just a collection of complaints, it was a rallying cry, infused with the dreams they had for a better tomorrow. "We want affordable housing," someone shouted, their voice piercing through the chatter. "Access to jobs that actually pay," yelled another. Each declaration added weight to their cause, thickening the air with purpose, and just like that, the flutter of doubt that had clung to Amelia began to dissipate. She thought of her young daughter back home, the laughter that filled their little apartment, the dreams of a brighter future she wanted to build for her. This was about more than just them. This was about generations to come. "Remember," Jake said, raising his voice to draw attention as the room began to quiet down. "It's not just what we're against, it's what we're for. We stand for community, for dignity, for everyone who feels they've been pushed aside. Let us make them listen." In that moment, the door felt like the threshold between their whispers and the loud cries of the world outside. Amelia could taste the adrenaline and fear mingling with hope in the air. She stood on the precipice of something extraordinary. Could they really speak out? Could they demand change? As if summoned by her thoughts, another boom echoed from the street, shaking the very foundations of the building. People jumped at the sound, their courage wavering for a heartbeat before reasserting itself. Jake moved toward the door, motioning for them to follow. "Are you with me?" he shouted, the intensity in his eyes urging them to silence the fears that threatened to overwhelm. A chorus of yes rose like a swell, and Amelia could feel the tears prick at the corners of her eyes. They were together in this, each heartbeat synchronizing as one. "Let us go," Amelia whispered to herself, a mantra to drown out the anxiety within. With one final glance around, she took a deep breath, and stepped toward the door, the handle cool against her palm. The jarring contrast of their quiet sanctuary against the noisy chaos outside made everything feel more real. Courage rushed through her veins, and she pushed the door open. As they flooded into the street, the world slammed into focus a sea of bodies and shouts, a movement stretching as far as the eye could see. People standing tall, demanding their rightful place, their rightful voice. Amelia's heart soared. They could do this. They had to. But just as she stepped into the throng, the realization hit her like a wave: their unity could be powerful, but it could also be fragile. Would their message, their voices, stand strong against the noise of anger and the disbelief of those in power? Amelia felt the crowd surge around her, passion burning brighter. They were moving towards something monumental, yet the uncertainty of what awaited gnawed at her. What if everything they built crumbled before they made their statement? Her heart raced not just with fear, but with hope. Hope for change, for unity, for their voices echoing in the depths of history. Amelia didn't know how it would unfold, but she was ready to face the storm. For the first time, she felt the shift in the atmosphere, a palpable tension that could either spark a revolution or devolve into chaos. A silent scream swelled within her. When would they be heard? Would they stand firm in the face of overwhelming odds? Their journey was only beginning. And in the heart of it all, Amelia realized she would have to lead, not just follow. How could she inspire the others to take that leap with her, to harness the energy that pulsed around them? As they plunged deeper into the fray, she felt the stirrings of an undeniable truth: sometimes the fiercest battles begin with quiet voices demanding to be heard. The moment Amelia stepped out into the chaos, the raw energy of the crowd surged around her. Shouts rippled like waves through the street, a chorus of dreams and frustrations blending together as one. The vibrant signs waved overhead, some demanding justice, others calling for change, capturing the essence of the struggle that had brought them all here. Amelia's heart hammered in her chest, its rhythm matching the urgency in the air. She glanced at Jake, who was charging ahead, a beacon of determination, his fist raised high. Around her, friends and strangers united, and she felt the warmth of solidarity close in, almost a protective shield against the looming uncertainty. Together, they pushed forward, weaving through the throng. The cacophony was electrifying, people chanting, clapping, and shouting slogans that encapsulated their hopes. But amidst the noise, she heard something that struck a chord deep inside her. A chant, repetitive and heartfelt: "We are the future. We are the future." And it resonated with everything that lay in her heart. As they marched, the crowd grew thicker, each voice elevating the other, creating a whirlwind of passion. Amelia was consumed by the moment, almost high on the adrenaline of purpose, but her mind flickered back to her daughter's face. She needed to be brave for her, this was all for her. The thought fueled her, igniting a fierce determination. "Let us push towards the front," Amelia shouted to Jake, trying to overcome the roar around them. They needed to be heard, to show the world that this wasn't just noise, it was a movement. He nodded, and together they navigated through bodies and flags undulating in rhythm with their hopes. Just then, the atmosphere shifted. A sharp crackle sliced through the air, coming from the direction of the loudspeakers, where an announcement blared: "This assembly is unlawful. Disperse immediately." The message cut through the fervor like ice water, and for a moment, the crowd stuttered in shock, voices faltering as uncertainty edged in. "Stand firm," Jake called out, as people looked around, confusion spreading like wildfire. "They want us to back down, but we want. We are stronger together." The crowd's murmur grew louder again, but Amelia sensed the fear hanging in the air, a tangible weight that threatened to crush them. What if this rally turned destructive? What if their voices were silenced before they could make their statement? She felt a tightening in her chest, a call to action, a need to ground them in purpose. "Jake!" she yelled, capturing his attention. "We need to show them what we stand for, not just what we're against." Her heart raced, and she knew she had to act fast. Jake suddenly turned, meeting her gaze and nodding in understanding. "All right, everyone. Let us make our demands clear. We want change. We want our rights." And his voice, filled with renewed energy, rose above the crowd's hesitation: they began to chant together, "Change is coming. We stand united." Amelia felt the swell of heat rise in her chest again, and the fear slowly dissipated. The words poured out of her, unsteady at first, but quickly gaining strength as the group echoed them, each voice intertwining. But just as the crowd began to solidify their resolve, she sensed a shift again, something looming and angry, an undercurrent that felt out of place among their clear, legitimate demands for justice. A group of counter-protesters appeared at the fringes, waving flags and shouting obscenities. Their presence felt like a riptide, and Amelia's stomach dropped. How would they handle this clash? Would their resolve hold against aggression? In that moment of rising tension, Amelia realized the stakes were higher than she had imagined. How do we move forward, she thought, wrestling with her own fear and fatigue. As the two sides converged, Amelia stood at the center of this storm, her heart pounding, a hesitant hope flickering within her. She needed to find the words, the strength to keep them united. Would she be able to spark a change, or would this moment slip away into chaos? Next to her, the crowd shimmered with anticipation, waiting for a spark. Would she become that spark, or would she falter under the weight of what was unfolding? The air was charged, and the moment stretched as she considered her next move. It was time to act. Amelia could feel every heartbeat in her chest as she stood amidst the growing tension, feeling the fear and anticipation wrap around them like a heavy blanket. The crowd around her transformed, a living embodiment of determination, but the air was thick with uncertainty. She held on to Jake's arm tightly. "We can't let fear tear us apart," she said, glancing at him with fierce resolve. With Jake's nod fueling her courage, she stepped forward, raising her hand to call for attention. "Everyone!" she shouted above the clamor. "We cannot let this moment define us. We are here not just as individuals screaming against the darkness but as families, friends, and neighbors. We are united." Her voice rang out, cutting through the swirling noise as her words began to weave a thread of hope. People paused, eyes turning toward her, and she felt a rush of clarity. We are a community. We will not allow hatred to pull us apart. Let our fear of losing each other drive us to stand even stronger. The crowd began to stir, and Amelia felt the shift, the weight of uncertainty slowly lifting. Encouraged, she pressed on, speaking from her heart, "For every fear they throw at us, let us respond with love. For every insult they shout, let us raise our voices in unity. Let us show the world that our strength lies in our resilience." A cheer began to rise, a collective energy coursing through the crowd as they rallied in their shared determination. Amelia's heart swelled. She felt the power of their joined voices creating a safe bubble around her, shielding them from the growing chaos. "What do we want?" she called out, and it echoed back as their chants began to fill the streets. Unity. Community. Change. But as the chant crescendoed, the tension split like a knife between rival groups. The counter-protesters surged forward, angry faces contorted in rage. Amelia's heart sank. Would the very unity they fought for shatter under the weight of anger? She could see fear on the faces around her, uncertainty flickering like a candle in a storm. With her heart racing and adrenaline coursing through her veins, Amelia rushed toward the forefront, raising her hands in a plea for calm. "This is not the way," she cried, her voice standing out amidst the turmoil. "We cannot fight violence with violence. We need to show who we truly are. We need to stand together." Her words chased the shadows of doubt, the shouting faded for a moment as their rivals hesitated, the fierce resolve of unity holding its ground. Even the counter-protesters looked momentarily shaken, and Amelia seized on that energy. "Remember why we're here. We want change, we want respect, and we will not back down from who we are. We can rise together." The crowd began to repeat her words, weaving determination into the world around them, drowning out the anger. The vibrations filled the air, and Amelia's spirit lifted as she felt the crowd sway as one. A mother clutched her child tightly, a father raised his hand in solidarity, and neighbors looked at each other, eyes reflecting understanding and love. Then, as if ignited by a collective spark, the group of protesters stepped back, confusion flooding their faces, and for the first time, Amelia saw cracks in their anger. The realization washed over her: the walls separating them were more fragile than they had thought. Suddenly, a voice broke through. Are we really going to fight each other? Look around. One of the counter-protesters, a young man with tired eyes, hesitated. We all want a better life, don't we? Amelia felt heat course through her veins. This was the moment. Yes, we all do. She shouted, echoing the energy, her heart a wild drum. Let us find common ground. Let us sit down and talk. No more hate. The chant transformed then, echoing back stronger, no more hate. Let us talk. The crowd began to shift as the waves of doubt broke apart, voices softening. Conversation sparked among those who had been face to face just a moment before, breaking down the anger and opening lanes for understanding. Amelia felt her chest constrict as tears of hope brimmed her eyes. This is it. This is our moment. She thought. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with brilliant colors, the air hummed with possibility. Neighbors, families, and friends turned to share their stories, the wall of division crumbling with every word spoken. We're all part of this community. A voice echoed from the back, igniting a similar chant. We're all in this together. The atmosphere shifted again, a new tide washing over them as laughter intermingled with tears, bonding hearts like threads of silk woven into a tapestry. The journey wasn't over, but at this moment, they knew they could face whatever lay ahead together. Amelia turned to Jake beside her, pride swelling within. Together, they had triumphed against adversity. Sometimes the fiercest battles were fought not with fists but with solidarity and love. Today, amidst the chaos, they had reignited the flame of community, but this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Let us keep this going. She called, a steady determination anchoring her spirit. Let us push for real change, let us create our future. Her voice echoed, melding into the energy of hope that had transformed their fight. They had found their voice. Now it was time to make it heard, and as she stepped forward, arms open wide, tears of joy breaking free, she knew she would fight to ensure this warmth and love at the heart of their community would withstand any storm. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories. Your support fuels this journey, so leave a like right now to feed the algorithm. Comment below with your feelings about this inspiring conclusion and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.